I didn't see the Calvin Watkins tweet.
I saw it. Yeah.
He basically said that there's a chance and everybody's taking it. They might interview Ben Johnson and what's the defense? Aaron Glenn. And if so,
and if that case, you'd have to wait until they're done.
Yeah, and so they might have hire coach in mid-February, which goes without saying if they
might lose this week.
Well, yeah, but there's a chance. There's a chance the coaching search goes to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl is February 8th. That's mid-February.
And that's
mid-February.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's mid-February.
I guess I wouldn't freak out about that only because there's going to be other people waiting too, because people are waiting on Ben Johnson.
And
people are waiting on Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, so that's part of the thing.
But you can't wait. And if you're going to do this timeline, then your back channels better be strong as hell.
Right.
And you'd have to see the Jets hire someone else. You'd have to see the Raiders hire someone else. You'd have to be so confident that they're waiting for you for this to actually be a thing.
Right.
Because I think Ben Johnson would be great.
Right. But if you don't think you're getting him or don't have any indication you're getting him, you need to move your ass along.
Yeah. If you wait till mid-February and you don't get either of those guys, then it's a colossal failure. But I don't think that's going to happen.
And
then they go back to Mike McCarthy, like you already said.
Yeah, you just
go to Chicago or New Orleans
by then.
Yeah, but when he doesn't get employed, he's just going to be.
Who's the betting favorite in New Orleans?
McCarthy's second, right?
No, he's first in New Orleans.
Oh, he's first in New Orleans and second in Chicago?
Second in Chicago.
Okay,
first
so
in New
McCarthy's
Orleans,
got a pretty good shot. That's good. Good for him. I like McCarthy. Or I like McCarthy more than people who hate McCarthy. The only thing I don't like about the waiting thing, well, there's a couple of reasons I don't like it, but if you think that you're going to get your guy by waiting, then you wait. Like there's going to be teams that are waiting to that point.
This is not a 1 year decision. I mean, I know we're saying, and
it could be a 2 or 3 year decision.
Yeah, right. So it's a long, but it's still a long term. What's the best thing for my franchise in the long term? But yes, enumerate why, if you wait, how it affects this year.
Well, first I want to tell you that if I were going to have a Jerry rant today, it would be on the fact that their waiting wouldn't pay off because they're not going to get one of those guys. Now, Kellen Moore, if they keep winning, well, you're interviewing him today, so it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. You've talked to him.
The worst part about the Cowboys coaching search is the names that pop up don't pop up for anyone else.
Right.
If you are the one team that it's like, oh, they might hire this guy, or this guy, and no one else in the league is thinking about hiring this guy, or this guy, do you think you're the genius or the silly goose? That it's like, all of the guys that we're looking at, no one else is.
Yep.
Maybe you're just the smartest and everyone else is missing the boat. But no, Jesse, you talked about in the waiting thing, like until you know who your coaches are, you don't necessarily know
your identity. Like, what is your team's identity? Because we long talked about the Cowboys having some sort of identity. When that coach comes in, what is it? Is he an offensive coach? Is he the defensive coach? Now, when he comes in, he's going to say, well, the player that I like, we longed heard, we laughed about when Rod Marinelli, he says, well, I'm taking Taco Charlton and not taking TJ Watt because my defense requires me to have
your hand on the ground.
And I need this type of player. Instead of you taking what turned out to be a much better player in TJ Watt.
And way higher graded by a lot of draft analysts.
But he had his style, right? Yeah. Offensively, you're going to have your style. You're going to be a running team or a passing team. You want your running back to look a certain way. You want your receiver to look a certain way. So all of those things begin to take form. And now you put a little bit of a pause and a hold on guys like Will McClay and Chris Jones and all those guys in the scouting department of saying, all right, here are the best players, but now we have to formulate what that looks like as far as team. What does that look like in free agency? What are the guys are going to go out there in free agency? So the longer you wait, the longer you have to put together a staff and then now begin to kind of go through the plan of what players we want to fit set system defensively, 3-4-4-3, whatever they want to run now, nickel, dime, how are the cornerbacks? Those things are real matters in these instances, and the longer you wait and not have a coach and not have an identity, that also delays the success and the progress.
Can you also give some insight into like why, from like a scouting perspective, to like it's important for both of you guys, because scouts on staff, they haven't left. They're still on the team.
Yeah. They're here through the draft.
That's what I'm saying.
Or at least Will McClay is.
Or building the draft.
That's what I'm saying. So they're going to build draft boards. They're going to be working until the draft.
And their thing is, this is, if they still do it the same way, this is not Jeff knowledge. This is from our friend Brian Broaddus, who used to be a scout for the Cowboys. And the way they grade players is like you'll have a round grade, and like the way that they do it is 1-1-0, 1. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about numbers. But you have a round grade on all these players that these guys are working on all throughout the college football season and through the process leading up to the draft. And he said in the Cowboy system, they have some players that it's a 9. And 9 is just the highest number. It's basically saying not for us.
Mm-hmm.
And not for us is because either he can't play or our coaching staff, our scheme, like, what do we want to do in the run game? Are we a gap running team, which basically means you tee off on the guy in front of you and let the running back figure it out? Are we a zone running team, which means everybody's kind of going on a path and then the running back picks from there? And those are like 2 different styles of things. You want 2 different sorts of linemen for that. And so the Cowboys will have a bunch of guys that you might be looking to draft that have a 9 on them. And then you're going to hire a new coach, and Will McClay and the scouting staff is going to be like, all right, tell me about scheme. Tell me what you like in your guards. Tell me what you like in your – and they're just going to have to turn around and be like, pull out all of the 9s and see how many aren't 9s anymore. Right. And pull out all of the guys that we've done all that work on and see which ones are now 9s. Right,
redo it, yeah.
And it's a lot of stuff that you have to deal with between now and April. And I guess ultimately it's just an annoyance that creates a lot more work.
Right.
But the more time that you have to do that, the more sound your process is.
No problem. No doubt. And it just reminds me of, don't tell me about the labor, show me the baby. Yes, there are going to be issues, if you have to wait. But other teams,
is that Shakespeare?
But other teams have waited. I mean, I was just looking. Jim Harbaugh got hired after the national championship game on January 24th last year. So 2 weeks later, what's going to be big deal? 2 years ago, the 2 Eagles coordinators didn't get hired till after the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. One with Arizona, one with to Indianapolis. I mean, teams have waited that long before. So yes, it's going to be a nuisance.
I mean, if there's any indication.
Yeah, I mean,
teams weren't good.
No, well, this team ain't good.
You know what I mean?
But my point is, the goal is not to rush. The goal is to get the right guy. The right guy for not just 2024 or 2025, but for the right guy, say you're getting a 3 or 4 or 5 year contract, the right guy for the long haul for your team.
And if the Cowboys had fired Mike McCarthy the day after the season finale and they had interviewed Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn and said, hey, now we're going to interview some other guys and then we'll let the process go, it would make us also on the outside think that the process has led to them already.
No.
That would make a lot more sense.
No, it will make more sense.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It would be smarter. We already talked about the process has been rotten. It's
just like Norway.
Denmark.
Denmark.
Denmark, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the countries over there.
Something rotten in Denmark.
Yeah, I picture them skiing a lot.
The process is rotten, but the goal is to get the right guy.
Yeah.
Not to rush into a guy.
Well, to get the guy that Jerry gets along with.
Yes, and that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. To get
it's like the thing with Deion, and I like Deion. I don't like the fact that a lot of people, like even Adam Schefter, Kellen Moore is more the logical hire, and Deion is the intriguing hire. I don't want the intrigue. I mean, you want the fun hire, okay? You want the circus.
Don't you put those words in my mouth.
You would too.
Okay, but
you go to the press conference.
Okay,
the press conference.
I'm talking about from a Cowboy fan perspective. It's intriguing. Get the guy that's gonna help you win the Super Bowl.
It's Deion.
And so what I'm saying is, all the discourse around Deion is not that he's the right guy to help him win. It's that's the fun hire.
Yeah.
That's
and
what
honestly,
I'm talking about.
I don't know. I don't know which way to go on Deion because he might be a good hire. How does who he is and what he does play? Like, do we think that Deion has a reputation for discipline?
Yes.
And no nonsense?
Yes.
That sounds good around here. He fits the Jerry stuff. And it's just a matter of, can you surround him with the right coordinators? I don't know. Maybe his stuff plays better in college than the NFL, but I don't want to outwardly dismiss him. I don't think the idea of Deion coaching an NFL team is a joke. I think it helps him more in college to attract teenagers to somewhere that is really cool to play for Deion. And in the NFL with the salary cap, it doesn't play the same. There's one other Deion thing. Should I sneak it in here? There's one other Deion thing that I saw from our friend Jane Slater, where Deion went to the AD at Colorado, and because he has a contract on his desk basically that's unsigned. Yeah. And so Deion's probably doing all this to get more money from Colorado. But allegedly, it was reported that he went to the AD and was like, hey, I need some more NIL money and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, not really. And I'm like, okay, you do realize that using your leverage to try to get somebody to give you more NIL money, having that be Steven and Jerry Jones, cheap ass, that's just not a good leverage play.
Right. But Rick George is desperate.
Like, I could go to look, Rick. I could go over here to this team that refuses to spend in free agency. Like, it's just a weird leverage play.
Well, no, that's tracks. Remember I said yesterday I talked to somebody that talked to Dion. He talked about Colorado, but he also talked about them giving him what he needed, the resources he needed that hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But that tracks with what Jane is talking about.
Yeah. I heard other people taking your scoop from yesterday and using it today. So shout out to you. No, open your hand,
I'm
bro.
sorry.
Thank you. You figured it out. We got there. We got there in the end.
We all silly like the mayor.